I never asked to be a hero. But when the cursed hollow crown shattered my world and swallowed my brother's soul, I had no choice but to dive headfirst into a nightmare where monsters lurk in the shadows, and hope feels like a fragile, fading ember. What I found beneath Norrak's ruined throne city was more terrifying than I ever imagined, a darkness that could consume us all. This is my story of betrayal, sacrifice, and the desperate fight to reclaim not just a kingdom, but the very soul of my family. Will I save him, or become hollow myself? The line between light and shadow has never been thinner. And the truth will break you. They say the stars are gods, silent, burning watchers from the firmament. But on the night they fell, they brought no wisdom. Only death. I remember the forge was hot, and my hands were blistered. The scent of iron, smoke, and sweat hung thick in the air. My master, Halric, barked at me to stoke the coals faster. He never had patience for my questions, especially when I asked about the runes carved into the old blades, the ones we were never allowed to sell. "It's not your business," he grunted. "You're a smith's dog, not a priest." But that night, even Halric looked skyward. The first star fell in silence, like a silver tear across the heavens. Then another. And another. By the time the fifth one streaked across the sky and crashed into the mountains beyond the town, the ground trembled beneath our boots. People screamed. Livestock fled. Windows shattered from a thunder that followed minutes later. We thought it was a sign. A divine omen. We were wrong. By morning, nothing seemed out of place, at least not at first. The sky had turned a pale green, and the birds were gone. The elders muttered prayers in hushed tones. The high priest locked the temple doors. And then came the rider. He appeared at dusk, his horse frothing at the mouth, eyes wide with madness. His armor was scorched. Black blood stained his cloak. He fell from the saddle and whispered one word before he died, "Hollow." I stood there, watching as the guards carried his body away. I didn't yet know what that word meant. But I felt something stir inside me. A kind of instinct, like something ancient had been roused, something that recognized the scent of war and ash on the wind. That night, I couldn't sleep. The forge was cold, and the sky glowed sickly above. I took one of the old blades, the ones Halric forbade me to touch, and climbed the ridge behind the smithy. I looked toward the mountains where the stars had fallen. And I saw them. Figures, tall, thin, wrong, moving in the distant dark. They gleamed like metal, but moved like beasts. No banners. No torches. No voices. Only silence. The hollow ones had come. And my world would never be the same. I don't remember how long I stood there, watching them creep through the mist like shadows given bone. There were at least 6 of them, maybe more. They moved with purpose, but not like men. They didn't stagger. They didn't talk. They didn't even look at each other. Each one carried a blade too long to be practical, too sharp to be real. Black metal, like it was forged in nightmares. I backed away, breath caught in my throat, and nearly slipped on the wet stone. They didn't notice me, or maybe they did and didn't care. Either way, I ran. Down the ridge, past the old goat pens, into the empty streets of Norrak's edge. By the time I reached the forge, I was soaked with sweat and rain, heart thudding like a hammer in my chest. Halric was still awake. He didn't ask where I'd been. "You saw them," he said. I froze. "You knew." He nodded, eyes heavy with something older than fear. "I've seen the signs before. In the war. We thought they were myths. Shadows in the frost. But they're real." I slammed the blade I had stolen down onto the table between us. "Then we fight." He gave a bitter laugh. "With what? Farm steel and wishful curses? They're not from here, boy. They don't bleed. They don't burn. Then what do we do?" Halric didn't answer. Instead, he pulled something from beneath the floorboards. A blade wrapped in cloth, blackened, etched with the same runes I'd asked about for years. He unwrapped it slowly, like one might reveal a corpse. "This was forged from star iron," he said. "Fell from the sky in the last age. It was meant for the king. But he never claimed it." The sword was cold in my hands. Heavier than it looked. Humming, almost, like it recognized the enemy already. "You take it," Halric said. "And you run. I'm not leaving you. You will. Because they're coming. Tonight." He was right. The hollow ones came before the second bell. They didn't scream or roar. They just appeared, stepping through mist, sliding down rooftops, gliding over stone. One touched the wall of the forge, and the stone blackened, crumbled like paper. Halric went out to meet them with a hammer in one hand and fire in the other. I ran. It wasn't cowardice. It was survival. I turned once, just once, and saw Halric strike one of them dead on with a swing that would have shattered a man's ribs. The creature staggered, reformed, and drove a blade through him like he was straw. I didn't hear him scream. Just silence. And then ash. I kept running, clutching the star-forged sword as tightly as I could, into the forest, into the night, into a world unraveling. Branches clawed at my face. Roots tried to trip me. The woods were silent, unnaturally so. Even the owls had vanished. Only my breath, ragged and fast, reminded me I was still alive. I didn't know where I was going. I only knew I had to keep moving. Away from the forge. Away from Halric's broken body. Away from the hollow ones. Dawn came like a dying ember, bleeding pale light through the fog. I collapsed beside a stream, letting the water wash the ash from my hands. My reflection looked back at me, cracked lips, soot-blackened skin, and eyes full of something I hadn't seen before. Rage. Grief. Purpose. I didn't even have time to weep before the trees whispered. I turned, blade half-drawn, only to be tackled from behind and thrown into the mud. A boot pressed against my back. A voice snarled, "Where's your mask, Hollow?" "I'm not one of them." I gasped. "I'm from Norrak's edge." The pressure lifted slightly. Then hands rolled me over, and I stared into the faces of three figures dressed in mismatched armor. Scars, dirt, and haunted eyes. One of them, a woman with a braided mohawk and a jagged spear, studied the sword I still held. "Star steel," she muttered. "Where'd you get that?" "It was my master's." "He died fighting," she held up a hand. "If you're lying, I'll gut you." "I'm not." The third one, a tall man with half a jaw made of brass, lowered his axe. "He's not Hollow. Not yet." They called themselves the Ember Watch. Survivors. Hunters. The last flame of Norrak, they said, protectors of what little remained after the first cities fell to the Hollow Plague. They had seen it all, kings flayed alive, armies disintegrated, towns swallowed by black light. "What are they?" I asked, around a campfire that night. The woman, whose name was Thorn, stared into the flames. "Not men. Not gods. Something in between. They came with the stars. They wear our dead like armor. They kill, and they hollow." "Hollow?" She nodded. "They carve out your soul. Leave you walking, but empty. A puppet." I swallowed hard. "They took my brother. 10 years ago. During the first starfall." The man with the brass jaw grunted. "Then maybe he's one of them now." The fire crackled. None of us spoke after that. That night, I dreamed of Norrak burning. Of Halric screaming without sound. Of a crown floating in darkness, wreathed in flame and void. When I woke, the sword was humming again. The stars were moving. And the hollow ones were hunting. Thorn was the first to notice. She froze mid-breath, one hand hovering above her spear. Her eyes locked on the sky, where a cluster of stars shimmered unnaturally, too close, too fast. "They're tracking us," she said. "Through the stars?" I asked, still half groggy from sleep. "No," growled Brassjaw. "Through you." Thorn turned to me, her voice low. "That sword. That metal. It's like a beacon. They can smell it." I looked down at the blade in my lap. Star-forged. Beautiful. Deadly. A curse. "I didn't know," I muttered. "We need to move," said Thorn. "Now." We abandoned the camp in silence, heading deeper into the forest. The trees thickened, gnarled and twisted from old magic. The deeper we went, the colder it became, not like winter cold, but something wrong. A cold that came from the earth itself. By midday, we reached the ruins of an old way station, stone walls cracked and swallowed by vines. We took refuge inside, and Thorn used her knife to carve wards into the doorway. Brassjaw whispered a prayer I didn't understand. I turned to the third member of the group, Barrick, a wiry man who hadn't spoken much. "You fought them before?" I asked. He gave a dry laugh. "Fought. Ran. Watched good men melt. Same thing, in the end." Thorn narrowed her eyes at me. "You said your brother was taken. When?" 10 years ago," I said. "When the first star fell. Everyone said it was an accident. A fire in the eastern hills. But I saw it. A light in the sky, and then, silence. And now the hollow ones return," she said. "On the eve of Norrak's coronation war." I frowned. "What coronation war?" Brassjaw answered. "The king is dead. His sons fight for the throne. Every lord, every baron's claiming a crown. Norrak is splitting at the seams." And suddenly, I understood. The hollow ones weren't just hunting. They were waiting. Waiting for us to tear ourselves apart. That night, the wards cracked. A shriek shattered the air, high, cold, inhuman. One of the hollow ones dropped from the roof, its body unfolding like a spider. Brassjaw leapt first, axe flashing. Sparks flew. The creature dodged like smoke and stabbed him in the side. Barrick screamed and threw a firebomb. The thing ignited, but it kept coming, wrapped in flame, black bone gleaming. I raised the star-forged blade. And it stopped. Just for a moment. Then it turned to me, tilting its head in a way no living thing should. It whispered something I couldn't understand. Not with words. With memory. "Brother." And then it lunged. I struck. Steel met bone. The sword sang. The creature fell, twisting, shrieking, and dissolved into ash. Silence returned. Thorn grabbed my arm, eyes wide. "What did it say to you?" I shook my head. Because I wasn't sure what scared me more, that it had spoken. Or that I'd recognized its voice. It had been years since I'd heard my brother's voice, but the echo in that hollow's final whisper matched something buried deep in my bones. It wasn't just mimicry. It was him. A fragment. A memory. A soul, twisted and hollowed, wearing a shell of something no longer human. Thorn sat across from me, tending to Brassjaw's wound. The old warrior had survived the stab, but barely. His breathing was shallow, and his eyes never quite focused. Barrick paced, muttering curses under his breath. "They're adapting," Thorn said grimly. "They didn't come for us tonight. They came for you." I looked down at the blade again. It no longer felt like a weapon. It felt like a key. "They can be killed," I whispered. "One," Barrick spat. "You killed one. There are thousands." No, I said, my voice growing steady. I didn't kill it. He let me. That silenced them. I stood slowly. The weight of realization settled over me like chainmail soaked in blood. They're not just monsters. They're taken. Twisted from what they were. And if my brother's voice was in that thing, you think he's still alive? Thorn asked, brow raised. No. Not alive. But not gone either. A long pause followed. Finally, Thorn said, then maybe there's a way to unmake them. We moved at dawn. The ruins were no longer safe, and Brassjaw's wound was worsening. We made a litter for him and kept to the thickest parts of the forest. Each step forward felt like marching through ghosts. By midday, we reached a half-collapsed tower. Thorn said it had once been a watchpost of the old Rune Kings, built with stones enchanted to repel darkness. Most of that magic had faded, but enough lingered to keep us hidden for the night. I sat on the roof, the sword in my lap, watching the sky. The stars were no longer random. They moved in patterns now, spirals, sigils, like ancient runes carved into the heavens themselves. And then I heard it again. A whisper. Not from the forest. From the blade. It wasn't words. Not at first. Just feeling. Images. Fire. Chains. A circle of black stone. And a face, partly human, partly ash. My brother's face. Hollow, but watching me. Then came a voice, barely audible, like wind through broken glass. Follow the flame. Beneath the throne. I jerked back, the vision fading. My skin was clammy. My breath shallow. But I knew one thing, this sword wasn't just forged from star iron. It was forged with purpose. Thorn, I said, running back down. We need to go to the capital. To Norrak. Why? Because whatever the Hollow Ones are, they began beneath the throne. Thorn stared at me, unmoving. The fire crackled between us, but it might as well have been a chasm. That's suicide, she said flatly. You want to walk into the heart of a civil war. Kingslayers, bandits, mercenaries, every crown-hungry bastard from here to the Broken Sea is carving up Norrak right now. I don't care, I replied. That's where the answers are. The Hollow Ones aren't just feeding on our fear, they're feeding on our division. Brassjaw stirred from his bedroll, his voice hoarse. The capital's not a city anymore. It's a battlefield with walls. Then I'll walk through fire if I have to. Thorn looked at the sword in my hand, then at me. You sound like a king. I met her gaze. I'm no king. I'm just the last witness. We left the tower at first light, cutting east through the ragged hills of Old Arendvale. The land was cracked and burned from raider skirmishes, and the wind carried the stench of spoiled meat. We passed what was left of a caravan, bodies slashed open, some missing faces entirely. Hollowed. Beric kept to the rear, more silent than usual. He hadn't spoken since the night of the vision. Thorn said he'd lost his sister to the Hollow Ones during the first fall of the Eastern Kingdoms. He never found a body, just her voice, once, screaming from inside a Hollow's helm. On the third night, we found the river road and followed it to the outer walls of a ruined border town. Fires burned in the distance. Black smoke rose like a funeral veil. We approached cautiously, blades drawn. Inside, a warband of mercenaries had made camp. Their tabards were shredded, their armor mismatched, but they were organized. Too organized. Hold, Thorn whispered, raising a hand. Something's wrong. A cold wind swept past us. The firelight flickered, and then died. One by one, the mercenaries stood, motionless. No breath. No blink. And then, in perfect unison, they turned their heads toward us. Eyes glowing faint white. Not hollowed. Controlled. Beric swore and threw his last firebomb. It hit one of them square in the chest, engulfing the man in flame. He didn't scream. He didn't move. He just walked forward, burning. I raised the star-forged blade. It lit like it had a heartbeat. I stepped in front of Thorn. And then they charged. The fight was chaos. These weren't the slow, lumbering creatures from the forest. These moved with coordination. With strategy. As if guided by one mind. Every time I struck, I heard a whisper in the metal. Deeper, deeper still. I fought like I had nothing left to lose. 1, 2, 3 went down. Their armor split, revealing black rot underneath, but no blood. Thorn cut a path toward the bell tower. Get high ground, she shouted. We scrambled up, breathless, blades slick with ichor. Below us, the possessed mercenaries encircled the tower like wolves. Then they stopped. And the sky answered. A low hum echoed across the land. One by one, the stars above began to dim, forming a single spiral over the horizon, over the direction of the capital. Thorn stared, pale. They're gathering, she whispered. I clenched the sword tighter. Then came the whisper again, this time clear, this time loud, from inside my own skull. Come home, Ashborn. The voice echoed through my skull, not like sound, but like memory. It wasn't a command. It was an invitation. Familiar. Intimate. Like a hand extended from the edge of a cliff. Below the tower, the hollow-controlled mercenaries still circled, unmoving, waiting for something. Or someone. What did it say to you? Thorn asked, voice sharp. I couldn't answer. Not right away. I stared at the sword in my hand, its glow fading now, but still warm to the touch, as if it, too, had heard the voice and knew what I was becoming. Ashborn, I said. It called me Ashborn. Thorn frowned. What the hell does that mean? Brassjaw stirred behind us. Ashborns were myths. Stories told by broken men after the first starfall. Warriors marked by the void. Touched by hollow flame. And you believe them? Beric snapped. Next you'll tell me the king's tower bleeds when it rains. No, I said quietly. It's true. I felt it. Something's inside me. The sword didn't just choose me, it remembers me. Like I've held it before. Thorn's eyes narrowed. You're saying you're one of them? I don't know what I am, I said. But I think I'm the only thing they're afraid of. We escaped the tower under cover of storm. Rain fell in jagged sheets, washing away the ash and blood. The hollow thralls didn't follow. They just stood there, heads tilted toward the sky, like they were listening to a choir we couldn't hear. By the next day, we were riding stolen horses down the Vane Road, the last surviving trade route that led straight to the capital. But the land had changed. Villages were deserted. Fields rotted where they stood. The sky had taken on a permanent bruise-colored hue, and sometimes, just out of the corner of your eye, you could see things in the clouds, massive shapes drifting, like the skeletons of forgotten gods. On the fourth night, we made camp in the ruins of a temple. The stones were still warm, as if they remembered fire. Thorn sat across from me, sharpening her spear in slow, deliberate strokes. When we get to the capital, what's your plan? I find the throne, I said. And whatever lies beneath it. And if your brother is really one of them? I'll bring him back, I said. Beric scoffed. You'll kill him. I'll do what I must. Thorn stared at me. You're changing. I know. That night, I dreamed of the past. My brother and I, chasing fireflies in the black fields beyond Norrak's edge. He'd always run ahead, always daring me to keep up. Then the star fell. And he was gone. I woke to firelight and silence. Beric on watch. Thorn asleep. Brassjaw breathing shallow. And the sword, humming again. I took it and stepped outside. The sky above the capital was alight, twisting, burning, reshaping itself into a storm of black flame. And at the center of it all, I saw a spire rising from the throne city like a blade through the heart of the world. Waiting. Calling. Ashborn. The word echoed in my mind as the city's silhouette rose from the horizon, jagged and smoldering like a wound on the earth. The throne city of embers wasn't the capital I remembered. It was a husk, blackened towers, streets cracked and bleeding with molten slag, and ash drifting through the air like snow. Thorn pulled her cloak tighter around her as we rode closer. No army holds the city now. Just factions, shadows, and ghosts. Brassjaw spat. And whatever the hollow ones have left behind. We crossed the broken gates, slipping past scavengers and desperate men who eyed us like prey. The air smelled of burnt oil and death. The deeper we went, the more I felt it, an ancient pulse beneath the city's stones. The ground itself seemed to hum beneath my boots, and the sword in my hand thrummed in answer. We stopped at the edge of the ruined palace, a skeletal giant crowned with shattered glass and iron spikes. The throne room lay beneath it, in the crypts below. This is where it started, I said. Where the hollow ones were born. Thorn unsheathed her spear. Then let's finish it. We descended into the darkness, the walls closing around us like a tomb. Shadows writhed in the corners, and distant echoes whispered in languages long forgotten. At the bottom, we found a circular chamber, the floor inscribed with runes glowing faintly blue. In the center, a black stone pedestal held a crown, the hollow crown of Norrak, pulsing with dark fire. The moment I touched it, the room shook. The crown's flames burst upward, revealing the hollow ones emerging from the walls like living smoke, their eyes burning with unholy light. But this time, I was ready. The sword blazed like the sun as I charged, the fire of the crown meeting the star steel in a clash that shook the earth. With every strike, memories flooded me, the brother I lost, the battles fought, the hope that never died. And then, with a final roar, the crown shattered, the flames snuffed out, and the hollow ones screamed, breaking apart into ash and silence. The city trembled one last time before stilling. We had won. But victory tasted like ash on my tongue. The shattered crown lay cold and broken at my feet, its dark fire extinguished, but the silence that followed was heavier than any battle cry. Thorn sheathed her spear, her eyes scanning the ruined chamber. Is it really over? I knelt, running my fingers over the cracked stones. It has to be. The source of their power, the crown, is gone. The hollow ones should fade. Brassjaw coughed, blood speckling the floor. If only it were that simple. I've seen darkness like this before. It lingers in shadows, in hearts. Beric paced restlessly. What about those still out there? The hollowed hoof spread across the lands. I clenched my jaw. We need to find them. Before they regrow into another storm. Suddenly, a whisper stirred behind us, a voice fragmented, familiar. I turned sharply. Brother, it was faint, carried on the cold wind. My heart clenched. Did you hear that? I asked. Thorn nodded grimly. It's not done. The hollow crown may be broken, but its curse isn't. And so, our fight was far from over. The faint voice that called my brother's name haunted the air like a ghost tethered to this broken city. I couldn't ignore it, not now, not after all we'd lost. Thorn and I stepped deeper into the crypt's shadows, following the whisper like a thread unraveling a secret tapestry. Brassjaw struggled behind us, each breath labored, while Beric kept a wary eye on every dark corner. The tunnel walls were etched with ancient runes, warnings, or perhaps a map. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, drawing me toward a narrow passage sealed by a heavy stone slab. This way, I said, pressing my hand against the cold surface. The sword in my belt thrummed, as if urging me forward. Thorn grunted and together we pushed the stone aside, revealing a hidden chamber bathed in pale blue light. Inside lay a basin filled with dark water, its surface rippling though no breeze stirred. I stepped closer, staring down into the depths, and saw my brother's face, flickering beneath the surface, eyes pleading. "Help me," the voice whispered again, breaking my heart. I gripped the sword tighter. "I won't leave you here." The journey was only just beginning. Staring into the dark water, I saw more than just my brother's fading image. I saw the weight of everything lost, everything twisted by the Hollow Crown's curse. The basin wasn't just a mirror, it was a prison. Thorn stepped beside me, her voice steady but soft. "This is no ordinary water, Ashborn. It holds the remnants of the Hollow's magic, the soul fragments of those they've taken." I swallowed hard, the chill crawling up my spine. "If I reach in, can I pull him out?" Brassjaw coughed again, voice faint but urgent. "Be careful. The magic that traps him will try to pull you under, too." Without hesitation, I plunged my hand into the basin. The water was icy cold, and as my fingers sank beneath the surface, the whispers turned into screams inside my head. Visions flashed, memories not my own, of my brother's final moments before being hollowed, a desperate battle, a curse whispered in ancient tongues, a sacrifice. My grip tightened on the sword. "Hold on, brother. I'm coming." Suddenly, the basin erupted with a blinding light, and I was pulled into darkness. The world twisted around me, collapsing like broken glass, and I fell through a void where time lost meaning. Cold seeped into my bones, and the whispers, once faint, became a roaring storm inside my mind. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in the crypt anymore. I stood in a vast hollow cavern, its walls pulsing with faint blue veins of light. Shadows danced and writhed, taking shapes that seemed both alive and made of smoke. And at the center, bound in chains of shimmering darkness, was my brother. His eyes were hollow, but deep inside them flickered a spark of recognition. "Ashborn," he breathed, voice cracked but real. I stepped forward, sword drawn. "I'm here. I'm going to get you out." But the cavern trembled. A towering shape emerged from the shadows, half man, half nightmare, its face a fractured mask of flame and bone. "You cannot save him," it hissed. "Not without becoming hollow yourself." I tightened my grip. "I don't care what it takes." The final battle was just beginning. The creature loomed before me, its breath like ash on the wind, eyes burning like twin coals. Its voice was a twisted melody of sorrow and malice. "To save him, you must give something in return. Your soul, your memories, your very essence, anything." I stared down the nightmare, feeling the weight of its offer pressing on me like a blade. The sword in my hand hummed, alive with an urgency I'd never known. "What do you want?" I asked. The creature smiled, a fracture of flame spreading across its face. "Join us. Become hollow. Become eternal. Rule alongside the crown you shattered." "No," I growled, shaking my head. "I'm not yours to claim." Suddenly, the chains binding my brother snapped, and he collapsed forward, weak but breathing. "I'm here," I whispered, kneeling beside him. The hollow monster roared and lunged, but with a roar of my own, I met its attack. The sword blazed, a brilliant starfire against encroaching darkness. This fight wasn't just for my brother. It was for the soul of Norrak itself. The hollow monster's claws tore through the air, but the sword met every strike, its starfire burning brighter with each clash. I felt a power I never thought I possessed, the ancient strength of the Ashborn, the warrior marked by the void. My brother struggled to his feet, eyes clearing as the chains of darkness melted away. "Run!" I shouted. "Get out while you can." But he shook his head, steadying himself. "I'm not leaving without you." A sudden surge of energy erupted between us, his hand reached mine, and for a moment, the hollow darkness inside him faltered, replaced by something fierce and alive. Together, We stood side by side, a beacon against the encroaching shadows. With a final, roaring strike, I drove the sword into the heart of the creature. It shattered like glass, releasing a storm of sparks that vanished into the void. The cavern began to collapse, but we held tight to each other as the world around us crumbled. We had won this battle, but the war for Norrak was far from over. Emerging from the collapsing hollow, the air felt heavier, as if the land itself mourned the scars carved into its soul. My brother and I stumbled into the twilight, the ruins of the throne city sprawling before us like a graveyard. Thorn and Brassjaw waited at the cavern's mouth, their faces drawn with exhaustion and worry. "I thought we lost you," Thorn said, voice thick. "I'm here," my brother replied, voice steadier now but shadowed with pain. "But part of me still feels hollow." I tightened my grip on the sword. "We broke the crown, but its curse lingers. We have to find the root, destroy the source of this darkness once and for all." Beric stepped forward, his eyes fierce. "Then we march for the hollow marshes. That's where the first star fell. Where the corruption began." As the last light faded, we prepared for the journey ahead, toward the heart of the abyss, where hope and despair would clash in the final reckoning. The hollow marshes stretched before us like a vast, breathing wound on the land, murky waters roiling beneath a thick veil of mist. Twisted trees clawed at the sky, and the air was thick with the scent of decay and forgotten sorrows. Each step was heavy, the mud sucking at our boots, as if the marsh itself tried to hold us back. My brother walked beside me, still fragile but resolute. Thorn and Beric flanked us, weapons ready, while Brassjaw grumbled about the stinking cursed swamp. We moved in silence, broken only by distant, unsettling sounds, low growls, whispers, the soft splash of unseen things moving beneath the water. Suddenly, from the mist emerged figures, hollowed warriors, remnants of the crown's influence, their eyes empty, bodies twisted by dark magic. Without hesitation, we charged. Steel clashed with shadow, flames met darkness, and every strike felt like ripping the marsh itself apart. But the deeper we pressed, the clearer the message became. The true source of the hollow crown's power lay buried beneath the heart of this cursed land. And we would have to face it, or watch Norrak fall forever. The heart of the hollow marshes pulsed beneath our feet like a wound that never healed, a churning black lake surrounded by twisted roots glowing faintly with an unnatural light. We stood at the edge, the air thick with a silent menace. My brother's eyes met mine, no longer hollow, but filled with a fierce determination. "This is it," I said, gripping the sword tighter. "The source of the crown's curse." Thorn nodded, spear ready. "We take it down here, or nowhere." We descended into the shadowed basin, the ground squelching beneath us. Suddenly, the waters erupted as the marsh guardian rose, a monstrous beast wreathed in darkness and flame, its many eyes glowing like embers. The battle was unlike any we had faced. The creature struck with fury, each blow shaking the very earth, but we fought as one, me wielding starfire, my brother a newfound strength burning within him, and our friends holding the line against the creature's relentless assault. As the final blow struck, the beast dissolved into ash and shadow, leaving behind a faint glow, a seed of light buried deep in the mud. I reached down and pulled it free. "It's over," I whispered. But in my heart, I knew this light was just the beginning of a new hope, for Norrak, and for us all. The glowing seed pulsed softly in my palm, its warmth seeping through the grime and cold. Around us, the hollow marshes began to change, the thick fog lifting, the poisoned waters calming as if the land itself was breathing a long-awaited sigh. My brother stepped beside me, exhaustion and relief etched into his face. "We've broken the curse," he said quietly, eyes scanning the shifting horizon. Thorn lowered her spear, a rare smile breaking through her usual resolve. "Norrak will live." But as we turned to leave, a sudden rumble shook the ground beneath us. The earth cracked open, revealing a swirling vortex of shadows, a reminder that the darkness we fought was never truly gone. Beric gritted his teeth. "The fight's not finished." "Not yet." I held the seed tighter, feeling its light grow stronger. Then we'll face it. Together. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in what felt like forever, hope blazed brighter than fear. We gathered our strength, knowing the final reckoning awaited us beyond the swirling shadows. The vortex pulsed like a wound in the sky, leaking tendrils of darkness that threatened to swallow everything we fought for. My brother gripped my shoulder, steady and unyielding. This ends now. No more hollow ones. No more curses. Thorn, Beric, Brassjaw, and I formed a circle, our weapons raised and hearts aligned. The seed of light glowed fiercely between us, a beacon of all that remained pure and unbroken. As we stepped toward the vortex, the shadows lashed out, visions of despair, memories twisted by the crown's power, but we stood firm, refusing to falter. With a roar, I plunged the sword into the heart of the dark rift, the seed's light exploding in a radiant burst that tore through the darkness like dawn-breaking night. The vortex screamed and shattered, scattering shadows into nothingness. Silence followed, a deep, healing silence. We had ended the Hollow Crown's curse. The darkness that had plagued Norrak for generations was finally lifted, leaving the land bathed in the soft glow of dawn. I stood atop the highest tower of the throne city, the wind carrying the scent of fresh earth and new beginnings. Beside me, my brother breathed deeply, no longer hollowed, but whole again, scarred, yes, but alive. Thorn, Beric, and Brassjaw moved through the streets below, helping villagers clear rubble and plant seeds where ash had fallen. Life was returning, fragile but unstoppable. I sheathed my sword, the weight on my shoulders finally lightening. Looking out across the horizon, I understood this journey was more than a battle against monsters or magic, it was a fight to reclaim our humanity, to choose hope over despair. The Hollow Crown was gone, but the true crown, our courage, our unity, our resilience, would forever shine brighter. As the sun broke free from the horizon, I smiled, knowing that while the road ahead would not be easy, it was ours to walk. Together. The end.